It is with great pleasure that I am here to share my thoughts and insights as a trade unionist, what you have introduced, and I was also a former banker. We represent employees in the skills and services enterprises all over the world. We represent about 20 million members in 900 unions in about 140 countries. The critical factors that worry each one of us in this era, after the advent of global financial crisis, and then the economic slowdown with that, can be presented or elaborated as 3D problems. The first D is the deplorable debt. The debt level is very high, it's unbearable. The second D is the depleted natural resources. The third D is the degraded environment. We may have everything, but if we don't have fresh air and fresh water, then the sustainability is becoming an issue. The challenge that I confronted in sequencing my thoughts and ideas is how to reinterpret the teachings of Gautama Buddha in line with Buddhist principles, which was preached 25 centuries ago in a logical manner, and make it more relevant to the 21st century audience or the listeners, and how they are going to use them to find alternative solutions for the problems that we are currently grappling with. The key action phase in my topic is showing compassion. I mean, we know that it is a cardinal Buddhist principle, which is not only limited to human beings, but for all living beings. So I thought, let me put up a front-loaded question to proceed further and ask, what prevents us, or what are the impediments that prevents us, or all of us in the society, to find it difficult to show compassion to each other? So that might give us some opening to proceed further. I feel that the ruthless competition among the individuals and the institutions were the causal factors for the global financial crisis and the economic slowdown, which propelled on other two factors, again human problems, greed and corruption. So they are all interconnected. In the process of unrestrained globalization, I think you are all aware of, many of us were forced to believe that people are living in markets and not in societies. We ignored the importance of social values, which are demonstrated as socially preferable conduct and behavior for the common good. But nevertheless, we focus more on generating economic value. Many of us are still confused between values and value. So we had to start from there. Moreover, we further shifted from relationships with social partners or actors to mere transactions. So it's not a relationship, but just a transaction. Maintaining meaningful relationships was not a priority anymore, which eliminated the need to show compassion to each other. And moreover, with the modern technology around us, the younger generation still distance themselves in forming relationship. Instead, they prefer to form social networks. And this new generation who are really engaged in these social media platforms, I'm sure they will find it difficult to realize or feel what compassion or emotions are. Now let's have a clear understanding what is this compassion is. It is an emotion one should cultivate to help those in stress and distress. This applies to all living beings, as fundamental principles of Buddhism enables a harmonious coexistence of living beings in the planet Earth. So this is why compassion is such an important element. In search of ideal Buddhist principles that emphasizes on enduring relationships based on rights and responsibilities of the parties to any relationship, I found that the Gautama Buddha's proclamation of Sigalovada Sutta in Digha Nikaya as an appropriate guideline for purpose of addressing the issues related to the topic given to me. So I have just narrated this. Let me first tell the story. Of course, I have no time to explain the whole sutta. This sutta is, it is said that Buddha proclaimed to a young man called Sigalaka, who was respecting the directions of the compass as a daily routine after his bath with his wet clothes and wet hair, as instructed by his late father. When Buddha questioned him the reasons for his ritual, he had no logical answer, except he was faithfully following his father's instructions. The learned one, Gautama Buddha, intelligently persuaded this young man to replace the 6 directions to 6 groups of persons with whom any human being will form some kind of relationships. Gautama Buddha went on and explained to him the responsibilities of each of these parties to the relationship. Now let me just explain this to you. And of course, I had to make this 3D because it was not only 4 directions, but it was also on upward and downward. So I thought that Buddha has thought of 3D, not now, even in the 6th century BC. But now, if we may apply this, so on top you have tax havens, and on down you have social hell. Anyway, I'm not going to touch with that. So these are the northward, southward, westward, and eastward directions, what is explained there. So the relationships what he wanted to, first with the parents in the eastward direction, with the dependents, that is your wife and children on the westward, the southward is the teachers, and the downward is the servants and the workers. So since my topic is about precarious work, so let me confine myself to the downward trend, which is about the servants. And please be mindful, this was taught in the 6th century BC. The situation was quite different. Slavery was common, rampant. Discrimination, differentiation in the society was also huge. So the relationship that existed was a relationship between a master and a servant. So here the responsibilities of the parties to the relationship, I'm putting it as the employer and the employee. And what was preached in the sutta, for the employer, arranging work according to the employee's strength. Okay, so now you have to take account of the age, the capacity to work in giving the responsibilities. Supplying them with food and wages. Okay. looking after them when they fall ill. They should provide for leave. Sharing special delicacies with them. Forget about delicacies, at least some bonuses or something to meet at their. Letting them off at the right time. 8 hours, 8 hours. Give them freedom, give them breaks for them to rest. Now remember, this is 6th century BC. For employees' side, wake up and start work before master. I mean, that was the era. Retire for the day after him. Take only what is given. Don't steal. Do the work diligently with commitment and passion. Be bearers of master's praise and good repute. Don't run down. So this is how the responsibilities were given. Now, if you may go and read about the sutta, you can find the relationship for other partners as well. So let's find out, who are those precarious workers in the 21st century? Do they enjoy basic rights that are legally prescribed for the well-being in the society? Are there any meaningful binding relationships between the employers and employees so that each other could fulfill their responsibilities as outlined as an ideal model behavior 25 centuries ago? Precarious workers can be defined as those who fill permanent job needs and denied with permanent job rights. Unstable employment, lower wages, no social security benefits, and very often working under dangerous working conditions. You may recall, as reported in media, workers who perished in the Rana Plaza garment factory in Bangladesh. We did some studies, we found all of them were locked. The workers went and complained. The walls were cracking, the machines are getting disaligned. No, they had to finish the order. Even the fire exit was locked. So that is how they worked. Helpless, hopeless migrant workers poached by human traffickers in high seas to be deployed as forced labor in seafood and fruit processing industries in Southeast Asia. Bonded labor in brick making and mining industries in China and Pakistan. Young girls forced into the flesh trade, working below their dignity for a living. Domestic helpers subject to harsh treatments in West Asia. They all fall into this category. Not only that, in the modern ICT-driven communication era, there is a new group. The other groups, they were selling manual skills. The new group, they are selling mental skills. Now these people are working in call centers, BPO, global supply chains. Imagine a generation of young children who meet their parents only once a year, that too for the Chinese New Year. Imagine young children calling their grandmothers as mothers and calling their biological mothers as siblings because they don't see, because all the children are being looked after by the grandmothers because the mothers are working day and night. So this is a challenging scenario. How are we going to address this situation? What type of relationships that exist between these employers and employees in this situation? Sadly, there aren't any relationship. There exist only transactions. And there is no need and there is no way to show sympathy or empathy towards the employee. And therefore, there is no case of compassion. And in most of these global value chains that are being propagated everywhere, they destroy social values, and in their enterprise, they add economic values. This is an alarming trend, and this widens inequality in society. And it's not only in terms of income and wealth, but again, it's making a sizable dent on the inequality of education and healthcare, which is creating a huge gap in the society, because people don't have enough purchasing power to meet all these. Everything pushes us towards race to the bottom, not to the top. In the absence of any form of relationship between the employers and the employees in these situations, there is no way to show compassion. So the employers are not bothered to discharge their responsibilities, which were considered as ideal in the 6th century BC, as preached by the learned one Gautama Buddha. Now, unrestrained liberalization and deregulations in the financial markets have contributed heavily to the current situation, as I explained before. Now, putting good money behind bad money is not a good option. Now, this is what is happening. In this era, private debt becoming public debt at a very rapid pace, and then public debt becomes sovereign debt, finally falls onto the shoulders of the taxpayer. And without learning from these bitter experiences, there is a new trend, an ill-conceived belief that the labor market has to be further deregulated to drive growth in these stalling economies. I'm telling you, if this happens, the number of precarious workers, what I mentioned before, will increase rapidly, and that will result in a lot of uncertainties. There will be a large group of people living without hope, without help, and that will lead to a huge social unrest. So what is ideal to address this issue is to have an economic system where we can strengthen the producers and the consumers, not weakening them. And that should happen in such a way without harming the environment, without damaging the ecosystem, and maintaining the right balance. New thinking and policy direction need to be humane and people-oriented to ease human sufferings and building future towards shared prosperity, not a borrowed from the future. Narrow the existing gaps in income and wealth, inequality, fair distribution of economic gains to facilitate trickling down growths to the marginal communities to lift them out of poverty and suffering. Showing compassion to those who are stressed and distressed is the way forward to build up enduring and caring and sharing societies. Transforming precarious work into decent jobs, decent work is the best option to drive economic growth by increasing aggregate demand in the real economy.